In this video, I'm going to show you how to let your users select from multiple choices of visual data to display within your Bubble app. Now, that sounds kind of vague. I'm going to show you an example of what I mean, and you will know exactly what I mean. Now, in my last video, I walked through how to configure and display charts within your Bubble app. And in fact, these two charts in front of you, the left bar chart and the pie chart on the right, these are the two that I showed in that video. Now for this video, I've added a window to the left chart, the bar chart. At the top right of the chart, there are now these three tabs that lets the user choose to display sales data for the past 3 months, which is what you're looking at here, or they can choose to display sales data for the past 6 months or past year. And this is what I mean by letting the user select from multiple choices of visual data. And this can be very useful to the user because they very well could want to see how the company did in sales over different periods of time. And so this situation where you're letting the user choose from multiple choices, that's actually a common scenario in a web application. And also, as you see here, this data is the same data, but for different periods of time. Now, your choices, they don't actually have to be the same kind of data. I could have had a pie chart representation of some data related to this as one of these choices. In other words, they could all be displaying different data. What the scenarios have in common is that they allow the users to choose what they want to see at any given moment. And they can toggle these choices back and forth. So to show you how to implement this, I'm going to first talk you through the overall high-level logic of how this is implemented. So you see the overall flow of the operations step by step. And as I'm talking you through the high-level logic, just be assured that I'm going to come back to walk you through the details when I'm done with the overall logic. So I want to talk through the logic at a high level first, because as I mentioned, this kind of thing happens a lot, that you want to let your users choose from multiple choices of things to display in any given web application that you're building. And if you're building in Bubble, then this piece of logic that I'm going to talk you through, that's something that you can file away in your mental cabinet, if you will, and pull it out and implement it in similar situations. All right, before I get started, I just want to take a quick second to say that for those who are new to my channel, I'm Kevin Chang from Do Your Dream Work. And on my channel, you'll find tutorials of how to do various things when you're building your web app on the Bubble platform. Now, Bubble.io is a no-code platform. It's powerful and flexible, and you can use it to build just about any kind of web application that you're thinking of. SaaS apps, minimum viable product prototypes, full-fledged web applications. And recently, they added the ability to build native mobile apps for the iOS and Android platforms, making it a complete solution for building your web applications. So if you're building your app on Bubble and you're looking for information on how to implement something, please feel free to check out the videos on my channel. All right, with that said, let's dive right into the overall logic of how to implement letting the user choose from multiple choices. All right, so the overall logic goes like this. We're going to go ahead and create all three charts. Now, we're allowing the user to choose one of them to display at a time, but we have to have all three ready to display. So we create all three of them, but we actually set the visibility for each one to off. In other words, none of them are visible in the first moments of this page being loaded. Now, in the beginning moments of this page being loaded, it's going to check a condition to see which chart to show. And the condition is going to involve a variable. Now, in Bubble, this variable is called the custom state. But what it is it's a variable that holds the value of which chart to display. So the three possible values for this variable would be 3 months, 6 months, or 1 year. So as I said, the visibility for each one of these charts are going to be off right at the beginning as this page is being loaded, in this area where the chart is, it's going to run a conditional statement. It's going to check this variable to see which chart to show. Now, when someone first lands on this page for the first time, we need to show one of the three charts. So there is a default chart, and I've set the default to 3 months. So in the beginning moments of this page being loaded, it checks the variable's value and it's going to say 3 months. So it will show the 3-month chart. And that's what you're seeing here. Now then the user looks at this for a bit and says, hey, I want to see the sales for the past 6 months. And they click on the 6 months, and clicking on this tab triggers a workflow that changes the value of that variable, changes it now to 6 months. And in addition to that, it also triggers a reload of this section of the page where the chart is. So just like when we first landed on this page, it's going to check that variable for which chart to show. And since the user, by clicking on 6 months, just change the variable to 6 months, it's going to show the 6-month chart. And of course, the logic I just went over is similar when someone clicks on the 1 year. Changes that variable to 1 year, this area gets reloaded, and Bubble checks again the value of that variable, and it's going to say 1 year now, and it's going to therefore show the 1 year chart. So that's the overall high-level logic of how this letting the user select from multiple choices to display, how that logic and that flow plays out. And as I mentioned earlier, this same logic is applicable whenever you're trying to let the user choose from multiple choices of things to display, as long as it involves something that is displayed on the page to the user. All right, now, so that's the overall high-level logic of how to implement this. Now I'm going to walk you through step by step the details of how to do this. All right, to start off, I'm showing you the 3 charts that I've already gone ahead and created. And as I mentioned before, we want to have these created and ready for the user to choose. And the only reason I'm not walking through how to create these charts is that I've already done that in a previous video. So if you want to know the details of how to set up and display charts like this using the Charts Elements plugin, the link to that video is in the description below. So here I just have them stacked on top of one another. The 3-month on top, 6-month, and the 1 year chart. And back in the Bubble editor, we can see that this is just a simple column container where the charts are located. And once you've created the charts and set them in the location that you want to have them displayed, and again, only one of the 3 in actuality would be displayed here in this location at one time, we can go ahead and turn off the visibility for each one of these. Because again, we want to let Bubble check the value of that variable to determine which chart to show at the time of the page load. So all right, I'm going to go ahead and turn off the visibility for each one of these. I'm going to keep these charts open here though in the editor because I'm going to be working with in a little bit. But first, we're going to go ahead and set up the 3 options that the rest of the logic is going to use. And for that, we're going to head over to the Data tab on the left sidebar, where it says Option Sets, the 4th option over. We're going to create a new option set, and we'll just call it OS for Option Set, Chart 1 Options. And then we'll just create the 3 options for the chart. So these will be the time durations: 3 months, 6 months, and 1 year. And that's all we have to do. Just want to take a second to mention that we want to use an option set here rather than have these in a database, because whenever we can, it's an advantage to use an option set instead of trying to get the data at the time of processing, because the option set data is downloaded to the browser along with the rest of the browser code. So because it's already here at the browser, it executes faster than having to fetch data from the database. And the second related reason is you would end up using less workload. So since this set of 3 options is something that we already know ahead of time, this is a perfect case for using an option set. So this is all we have to do is just create these 3 options. Now back to our preview. I'm going to just refresh this when we should see these go away, the charts. All right, so this is what we're starting with. And if you recall, the 3 tabs with the 3 options for the user to choose was at the top right corner of this container. So we'll create that element next. And what we're going to use is a repeating group. So the set of 3 tabs is a list of 3 items. And a repeating group is used to pull in a list of items and display them. So we're going to go and grab a repeating group, and we will put them right here in this row container that also has the chart label. I'm first going to rename this. Chart 1 options. Now the type of content is going to be the option set we just created. OS chart 1 options. And the data source is going to be all OS chart 1 options, because we want to pull all of them into our repeating group. Here, I want the repeating group to only have 1 row. I'm not going to set a fixed number of columns. I will reduce the size of the width of these columns. And I want to make this repeating group a row container. And I want to have the repeating group itself centered vertically. And then the rest of it is just to resize the repeating group to fit within the row container that it's in. You're going to make the minimum width a little bit wider. I want it to take up a maximum of about 70% of the container that it's in. And I happen to know the height of the row container that it's in is about 40 pixels. So I'm going to set this about 40 pixels. And the rest of this looks fine. All right, then next I'm going to add some buttons for the option tabs. And this is going to be right in the repeating group, the first cell of it. So I want to just rename the button chart 1. And because this is a repeating group, I'm going to use the dynamic expression for the data that we've pulled in to the repeating group, which is the set of options in our option set. This is the label, so it needs to be text, so it needs to be the display. All right, now it's blue. And I'm just gonna shorten this for the placeholder. Let's say opt. I'm gonna use a different style here. So I'm gonna detach the style, make the text slightly larger, and I want the font color to be about grade 50. And I won't have any background color. And one last thing I'm gonna do is to set the roundness to 10. Now currently the border is not displayed, but when selected, the border will display. And so I'm setting the roundness of 10 for that instance. Then on the layout tab for this button, and again, because this is the repeating group, I'm styling the first button, but the style propagates to the rest of the buttons. So here I want to center the button vertically. Actually, I'm going to stretch this out all the way and just adjust the sizing of the buttons. Also adjust the padding, reduce it from 20 to 10. Now, these are stylistic preferences. There's no right or wrong, so feel free to experiment and find what looks good to you. What I'm going for here is just to have the text and the background of these buttons blend into the background of the container that it's in. Now, next we're going to work on the conditional tab for the buttons. When the button is hovered and this button isn't clickable is no, what we want to do is give the user the feedback that they are hovering over each of these buttons. So I think it's a good time to look at what we've done so far. So let me just refresh the page. All right, so our repeating group has been put here. We can see that, and it has pulled in the values. And so far, it's just the style that I've set for the text for the options. So let's keep working. For the conditionals, when someone is hovering over it, I want to set a background color, a background style, a flat color. then choose a background color. And here I want to choose something along the lines of gray 20. Then I want to set a new condition for when the button is selected. And I just realized that I can't do that yet until I've created the variable that will hold the value that Bubble will check to determine if this button is being selected. And to create this variable, again, Bubble calls this a custom state. So the custom state can be created on any element on this page. It can even be set on the page itself. But we're going to create it on this element here, the container for the chart. It's called group chart 1. And on the property editor for that element, whichever element you choose to create the custom state, the way you create it is click on the round icon with the eye on it, and that stands for the element inspector. So currently there are no custom states, and we're going to add a new custom state, and we're just going to call it time frame because it represents the 3 choices for time frame for the 3 charts: 3 months, 6 months, 1 year. And the state type are those 3 options. And then we can set a default value, and we should do that. And this is so that Bubble will know when someone lands on this page for the first time, which chart to show them. And what I've done is just to default to the 3-month chart. So default value is 3 months. And this is all we need to do. And remember that the custom state's name is time frame. And we've created that custom state on the group chart 1 element. Now going back to the button in our repeating group, then we can go ahead and finish setting up the styling that gives feedback to the user when they click on a certain button. So then the condition that we want Bubble to check is when group chart 1, and at the bottom here in the drop down where it says custom states, there's the time frame custom state that we just created. So we want that one. So when group chart 1's time frame is the current cell's chart 1 options, meaning the option that the user just clicked on. And remember, the time frame is going to contain the value of the tab that the user just clicked on, because that would have triggered a workflow to set the time frame to that value, whichever one they just clicked on. Now we'll get to setting up that workflow in just a little bit, but now let's finish this condition. So the way I'd like to have, let's move this up a little bit so I have more room. So the way I'd like to give feedback to the user when they've selected a tab is, first, I'd like to make the font color, instead of the gray 50, to be the darkest gray, the black color. Then I'm going to add a border, and there are 2 other options: border width of 1 and the border color, also the darkest gray, the black color. All right, now we can see how this looks. All right, this is pretty much what we had. If you look at our finished dashboard, and as we hover, we can see that there is a shade of gray, so you know which one you're hovering over. And what we just done here has that shade of gray. Now we can't actually click and have it stick yet because we haven't set up the workflow. So we're going to do that next. And to do that, go to the appearance. When the user clicks on a tab, which we're using buttons for in this repeating group, we're going to add a workflow. And what this will do is to set the value of the time frame custom state. Set state of an element, that's the one we choose, the workflow action. And the element we want to set, or rather the element that the custom state is on, is group chart 1, and the custom state is time frame. And the value is just the current cell's chart options. And the current cell is the one that the user just clicked on. Right, now let's go and refresh our dashboard. Right, now we should be able to click and have the selection stick, and it does. So now the final step is to have the selected chart displayed when the user clicks on one of these choices. And that, as you might imagine, is set at each of the charts. And so we're going to set a conditional on each of the 3 charts. So when, again, we need to specify the custom state time frame, and that's going to be at group chart 1. So when group chart 1's time frame is 3 months, we want this chart to show. So we remember the visibility for all 3 charts were turned off to begin with. So if the time frame is set to 3 months, the time frame can only be set to 3 months if the user clicked on the 3-month tab, then set the 3-month chart to be visible, display it. And we do the same thing. When the time frame is 6 months, set the 6 months chart's visibility back on. And lastly, for the 1-year chart, time frame is 1 year, show the 1-year chart. All right, refresh the dashboard to see the effect here. All right, now the 3-month chart shows right away because that's the default. So time frame was set to default. And now if we choose 6 months, 6-month chart shows. 1 year, 1-year chart shows. And again, as we hover, there's indication and feedback that I'm hovering over those options. And when we choose, the one that we choose has a darker font in the border. So all right then, this is how to implement letting the user choose multiple choices of a visual element to display. And again, once you understand the logic behind the implementation, you can adapt it to other situations where you need to give the user multiple choices, and only one of them will be visible at any given time. And this is a fairly common scenario when you're building an app on Bubble. All right then, if you have any questions about what I went over in this video, or if you have topic suggestions for future videos, feel free to leave them in the comments below. And I also want to mention that if you're running a Bubble app in your business, there are 2 services that I offer that can help. One is my existing app service, where I will add features and functionalities to your app per your request, troubleshoot issues, fix bugs, and perform other service requests, all in a transparent, fixed-priced service plan. And this lets you know upfront exactly what your cost will be. And you can pause or cancel at any time. No questions asked. Besides the cost transparency, this frees up your valuable time so you can spend it working on other important priorities in your business rather than dealing with tech issues within your app. And another service I offer is my coaching calls, where during the call, I answer your questions and help you get unstuck if you're building your Bubble app or troubleshooting issues within your existing Bubble app on your own. The links to both of these services are in the descriptions if you like more details. All right then, as always, thanks for watching, and I hope to see you in the next video.